Hey, this is Matt. Once again, what about in the videos is another paid request, this time from BT. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, it could be a random topic like this, or a ranking, a list. It could be a review or a re-review. It could be a video game let's try or a playthrough. It could be pretty much any type of video, reaction. PayPal is usually the best bet, or join my Patreon. The links are down there or over there in the info box. BT wanted me to rank the New Line Cinema movie franchises, which I thought was an interesting bit of business. Because that's the thing, when you look at it, it's weird that New Line Cinema kind of went away and got bought out by Warner Brothers, among other stuff, because there's a lot of successful films under their belts, as well as franchises. That's one of those things, like, what makes a franchise? Like, if a movie has one sequel, is that technically a franchise? I mean, a franchise, you would think it's, 3 or 4 movies at least. But I did the best that I could here. Number 10, I put Final Destination. I do like the first two. The reason it's so low is because he also had 3 and 4 and 5. I thought they were making a 6. Haven't heard anything lately of it. But yeah, because there's more bad than good. Like, if it was just maybe the first 2, or maybe they did 3 movies. I mean, okay, I don't like the third one, but I really like the first 2. Okay, but because there's so many bad films in it, it's down a bit lower as a franchise. Now, separately, Final Destination 1, I like the idea. I like the concept. I like Devon Sawa. I like the cast. I thought the kills were creative. And Final Destination 2, I think, is a lot of fun, especially that opening with the car massacre jamboree on the highway. One of the best highway destruction. It's a fantastic scene. And the rest of the film, I like the kills. They're gory, they're crazy, they're creative. And the film definitely has a dark sense of humor. The way it ends, I won't spoil, but if you've seen Final Destination 2, you know what I mean by the way it ends. And then you have the song, My Name is Death, which I like that song. It was a good time at the movies. 3, I think, is when they started to really run out of ideas. And bit too much too far. It's like, we don't need more of this. Come on, stop. Just stop it now. Number 9, I picked House Party. I know there's like 4 or 5 of them, but I could watch the first 3. The first one and the third one are my favorites. I'm not a big fan of House Party 2, but I don't hate the film. I could watch it. I could enjoy. Time waster at best. Again, I don't love the film. It's hard to even say I like the film, but I don't hate the film. Well, okay, it is what it is, But I do like House Party 1. I think that's a very fun one. And House Party 3, I think there are moments that are hilarious. Especially Bernie Mac has some very funny moments in it. Chris Tucker's in the film. So, and to be fair, I haven't seen House Party 4 and 5, to be fair. I just assume they're crap. But I actually haven't seen the sequel, so I can only view fairly the ones I've seen, which is the first 3. And all 3 I could watch, and 2 of them I rather like. So, there you go. Number 8, I put Friday. I love the first Friday. It's one of my favorite, in my top 10 favorite comedies. Next Friday I do like. The third film I'm not a fan of at all. And that's really the only reason why, as again, this is as a franchise, it's a bit lower. Because if it was the first two Fridays, and if that counts as a franchise, then that would be a bit higher. Friday, I think is hilarious. I think Ice Cube and Chris Tucker worked very well together. It's a simple idea, just people hanging out in their neighborhood one afternoon, all the weird stuff that neighbors happens, and our two lead characters get through. But it has a good energy to it, like especially Chris Tucker's performance. Ice Cube does a good job as the straight man to Chris Tucker's wild hijinks. It's a very funny movie. And next Friday, while I do miss Chris Tucker in the film, I thought Mike Epps stepped up to the plate and held his own, comedy-wise. And yeah, there's some pretty funny stuff in that one as well. Friday After Next I thought was lame. I thought it was boring. I never thought it was funny. Nothing about that really I found funny in that movie. Number 7, I put Critters. I grew up with those films, so they're nostalgia to me. I like all four. I can see why people don't like Critters 3 and 4, so it's not like I'm going to defend them. But I like all four. The first two I watched a lot. Really, all four I watched a lot when I was a kid, but especially the first two. You know, the first one on the farmhouse, I liked the family. Dee Wallace as the mom. Scott Grimes as the lead kid. You have the bounty hunters. Yeah, I love the look of the Critters by the Chiodo brothers. He also did Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think the look of the Critters look cool. The fur balls, the way they turn and the way they roll, and the little armadillo type of things they shoot out to dread people. Has a fun sense of humor, has a good score. Very young Billy Zane that gets killed and eaten up. I think they did what they could with I think it was PG-13 they had, because it's not rated R. I think they pushed it as far as they could. It's also interesting to watch the first Critters because it's the only one where they have the giant critter, which they, considering how many films they did, I'm surprised they never brought that back. The giant walking critter. Because it's the poster. Like, you think of Critters, look at the poster, they put that on the poster to sell the film. And what they put on the poster to sell the film, they never did again. Funny enough. I just, because A, the little critters are easier to do and make, and B, that's what people remember the most. While the Hulking one, you could barely see and it barely did anything, so. But it's funny, like, that was what they marketed it as. But then afterward, of course, you see the actual Critters they market. Critters 2 is my favorite of the franchise. I thought it felt like it had a bigger scope. Because the whole town is involved. You got the big critter ball. I love the guy who was the former sheriff. I think it's Barry Corbin, the actor. This town let me out in the landslide. This town can kiss my ass. Scott Grimes, is great to see him come back and have a bit more to do as the lead guy. The bounty hunters plot I thought worked better in this film. I liked it in the first one, but it felt like two separate films. It was the bounty hunters looking around, and you have some comedy involved. Then you have the family besieged by the critters. Then you have the bounty. It was like two films until the end they intersect. Critters 2, they all felt like the same movie. They're in the same realm. I thought Don Opper, he had a bit more to do here as the character Charlie. So he was, I liked that he was more incorporated into the story in this. Because he was with the bounty hunters, and then him and Scott Grimes, their friendship. I thought Medeiros handled the the film fairly well. It had some good effects. I like the musical score in that film too. You have some good death scenes, like the guy in the Easter Bunny suit that crashes through. He got blood all over. I like the ideas take place on Easter. So you have like the critter eggs and people are painting over them thinking they're just regular eggs. Again, it felt like a bigger movie. And that's what a lot of sequels back in the day did. Go bigger. Phantasm 2, Aliens. Let's go bigger than the first. Which I could appreciate that. Doesn't always mean better, but in the 80s, a lot of times it did. Rambo 2, bigger than First Blood. Aliens, bigger than, and I liked the first film, but I liked the sequels more. Critters 3 and 4, I didn't have fun with. They definitely have more flaws. But, again, call it nostalgia for these films. The third one in the apartment complex. On the cover, the VHS, they make it seem like, oh, they're running around in the city. Whether, technically they're in a city, but it's one apartment building, because this will be a lot cheaper than just shooting a couple rooms. The characters are definitely a step down, although it's interesting to see a young Leonardo DiCaprio. But yeah, the teen girl and her kid brother and her dad, who's a complete doofus, just oblivious to everything, just complete doofus. The characters, to me, are the big problem with that film. They're barely call them serviceable. But it's like the critters' hijinks and the effects. Because they did those films back to back, and they used more of the budget on Critters 3. That's why you have more critters and more stuff going on with the critters. Critters 4, that's the funny thing. Critters 4, I think, has the better characters, but they have a lot less critters in it. So I kind of wish they put all the critter stuff in Critters 4 and not Critters 3. So I kind of wish somehow it was reversed. And Critters 4, I always thought it was stupid that people complained, and they put it into outer space. They're aliens, dipshit. Like, did you not see the first Critters film? The first scene is in outer space. What are you talking about? The first scene, the critters are escaping from a space prison. They commandeer a spaceship. They land their spaceship. Because they're from space. That's like complaining about, a Predator film taking place in space. Yeah, they're aliens. Oh, they went to space. It's not like Hellraiser or Jason in space. Jason and Pinhead weren't from space, as far as I know, unless there's going to be some sequel, some other weird lore change. To me, it made sense to go in space when they're from space. So I like that it took place on a spaceship, and I like Brad Dourif. I like Angela Bassett. In terms of actors, Angela Bassett, they don't have a whole lot on the page, but Angela Bassett is I liked them as actors. Even the lead kid, the teen, I didn't mind him, acting wise. And that's what I mean. It's not so maybe it's not so much the characters I like more. I like the actors more. There's a difference. Characters, the way they're written, again, it's flimsy. The actors I like more in Critters 4. I actually don't like that they killed off Brad Dourif. I kind of wish he survived. And I would like the film even more if he survived. I don't think they should have killed him off. But anyway. But yeah, there's not many... There's, maybe 2 critters in the entire movie? If that... 2 or 3. There's not much. Because they spent too much money on Critters 3, so... we only have this much left on Critters 4. So, I can see why people find the film boring. But, again, I could watch all four of them and have a good time. So, Critters is number 7. Number 6, I put Rush Hour. There's only 3 movies as of right now. I don't like the third one, but I really, really like the first 2. So I know that's the thing, like, okay, I like all 4 Critters films, but I know 3 and 4 have their problems. Rush Hour, I don't like the third one, but Rush Hour 1 and 2 I really, really, really like. Like, Rush Hour, I remember being very pleasantly surprised. And it was like, oh, got Chris Tucker, up-and-coming star, you got Jackie Chan. And I remember at that time, I was really getting into both of these actors' movies. Because at that time, like, I'm getting to Jackie Chan, watching Rumble in the Bronx, Super Cop, Operation Condor, Jackie Chan's First Strike, Mr. Nice Guy, Chris Tucker. I really enjoyed Friday and The Fifth Element, even Money Talks. So he's these 2 guys, and wow, they're in the same film together. I was really excited for it. And then I didn't pleasantly surprised it didn't disappoint me. I still think it's a fun film. I think the 2 have great chemistry. Rush Hour 2 I liked even more, because I think they still have the same great chemistry, but then they upped the action a bit more. I felt the action was a bit better. It felt like there was a bit more. It felt like a bigger movie. Even the finale where they're going down and there's the explosion, they're swinging through, and they're by the trucks being dragged along and all that stuff. Felt like they had a bit more money to play with to make the action scenes a bit more of a spectacle. The fight scenes feel a bit more like Jackie Chan. I like that, change of venues with Hong Kong for a good chunk of the film. And then Vegas. So love Rush Hour 1 and 2. The third one, not so much. I guess if I'm being fair, compared to a lot of sequels throughout the years, Star Wars sequels, Indiana Jones 5, Rambo 5, Star Trek Generations, Alien 3. Is it the worst sequel of all time? No. I just remember being very disappointed and thinking, where did all this money go to? Oh, I went to the actors' salaries. Because it had like the same budget as Die Hard 4. I think Die Hard 4 was cheaper. And they both came out the same year. I'm like, Die Hard 4 has some insane action set pieces. I didn't really feel anything for the action in Rush Hour 3. All because, again, Brett Ratner and Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, they have much bigger salaries that took most of the budget. I don't like that they include Roman Polanski in there. That was distracting. This is a piece of trash human being. But Rush Hour 1 and 2, I really enjoy. I know they're trying to do a Rush Hour 4. It's a bit too late for that. Come on now. Number 5, I put Blade. Just like Rush Hour. I hate the third one. Although I rather watch Rush Hour 3 than Blade 3. But Blade 1 and 2, while I do like Rush Hour 1 and 2, and part of me wanted to put Rush Hour 1 and 2 ahead of Blade, but it's like, it's hard to... I didn't feel right putting Blade not in the top 5. I had to put it in the top 5. This is Blade. It's Wesley Snipes. Blade and Blade 2 are such solid genre fare. With the action and the blood and the Wesley Snipes being such a badass and the badass fight scenes, and you got Steven Dorff and you have the weird creatures in the second film, more Guillermo del Toro horror feel to it. And Blade 2 especially I thought was a badass movie, but both of them are such badass movies. It's Blade. Some motherfuckers trying to upstate. What is it? Try to ice skate uphill. I think that's the line. So yeah, Blade 1 and 2 are... Come on. What am I supposed to say? You know Blade, you know Blade 2, you know they're badass. Number 4, I don't know if this counts as a franchise, but I put the Friday the 13th. Because granted, Paramount had them. But I guess I think the Jason franchise I kind of wrote down here. Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and the reboot. They're New Line Cinema. There's 4 of them. If it doesn't count, then oh well. But I put the Jason films as number 4. It's my list. I love Jason Goes to Hell. I know there's some stupid stuff in there, like the shaving bit, but I really like. I like John D. LeMay. I like Stephen Williams. I liked how unique it is compared to Friday the 13th films, but it's unique that I can enjoy, be entertained by. I think it's the goriest of them. You also have some good nudity. I like that the director tried to give it a bit of style with the camera angles and the camera pushing into stuff, and it felt like that a bit more in terms of direction compared to previous Friday the 13th films. It's kind of just, other than the POV shot, that's the most they did. It felt a bit more slick of a production, so they had a little bit more money to play with. I like the Freddy Krueger bit at the end. Yeah, I really do enjoy Jason Goes to Hell, always did. Jason X I think is fun. It's goofy, it's silly, but I think it's B-movie fun. Yes, the characters I think could have been a bit better. Bit too much CGI and they didn't have a budget for it. Cyber Jason, I think that was a missed opportunity. He should have gotten that gimmick in the first third of the film. Like, after... at the end of the first act, he should have been Cyber Jason, and the rest of him be Cyber Jason. So you get some creative kills with, now you upgrade to be even more powerful. Imagine what kills you could get. Like, Cyber Jason should have been killing those mercenaries, those soldiers one by one. Maybe they shoot the hell out of him. He gets the upgrade. They're going to shoot him again. But now he's been upgraded, so... maybe he does this, kind of like Mortal Kombat style, and makes a head explode. He takes a body, tears it in half. Like, Ricky-O, the story of Ricky, like that kind of gore. You put that kind of gore with Jason now, and that's super powered, you could have really had something. So, they should have done that. But, I like the guy who plays Brodsky. Is that the character's name? I know the actor who was actually in the original Dead Space video game. He was forget his character's name. He's the black guy in this film and the original Dead Space game. I'm bad with names, that's why I can't remember his name. I'm horrible with names. I did like that actor. I don't mind the lead. She just doesn't have much of anything to do in the second half of the movie. But I don't mind her acting. There's stuff that made me chuckle. The android with the nipples and the nipples fall off. The VR Crystal Lake stuff. I like the look of Cyber Jason, Uber Jason. So I have fun. I think it's a goofy, fun film. Even, Kane Hodder, he's still killing soldiers one by one like he's John Rambo. It's goofy. It's entertaining. It's Jason in space. I know going in what kind of film it is, and I enjoy it like a cheeseburger. May not be good for me, but I'm satisfied. And Freddy vs. Jason I have issues with, but Robert Englund is on his A game. You have some good kills. You definitely have some style to it as well. And the fight at the end is fun. It's a fun fight at the end. Jason pushing Freddy through the house and them chopping each other to pieces with some good practical gore. Robert Englund's having a ball. I don't like the characters in the movie. I think it's one of the worst portrayals of Jason. They should have gotten Kane Hodder and make him look a bit like the Part 7 Jason. I think Jason should have put up a bit more of a fight in the dream world instead of be turned into a pinball and that's it. So I have issues with the film. I get that he's supposed to be afraid of drowning, but the way they made it look like he just... I think... I get the idea. I don't think it was accomplished as well as it could have. So I have a lot of issues with Freddy vs. Jason. I don't like it as much as when I saw it in the theater. But I don't hate the film either. I could watch it. I could be entertained, at least as a time waster. And it could have been way worse when you looked at the strips that were... They should do a documentary on all the scripts that were going to be for Freddy vs. Jason. Like, you do a full documentary on that. But, and I like the reboot that came out. I like that quite a bit. I'll say this, I like that reboot more than the original Friday the 13th. People get mad at that, I don't care. The reboot, you got Jason. I thought the guy who played Jason did a good job. I like Jared Padalecki. I don't mind that Jason makes traps. I don't think it's that far. Like, really? That's what people don't be mad about? Jason made traps. Really? That's what you're mad about? Jason can tape people and punch their head off, or Jason can push people's faces into damn RV walls, and Jason can find your phone number and or your address, I should say. No, phone number 2. Remember Friday the 13th Part 2, the beginning? This is a guy that lived in the woods for how many years? Living on raccoons and gophers, whatever the hell's out there. And he's able to go to Adrian Teen's house and knock on the... he didn't knock on the door, but kill her and... You're fine that Jason could do that somehow, but you're mad that he makes traps. He kept the lady. So you're fine, again, with him buying that this woman is his mother because she has a sweater on? And I like Friday the 13th Part 2, and I love Amy Steele. But she's got a damn sweater on, and he's like, hey, Mom, Mamma Mia. You're fine with that, but this is like too much? Like, what the fuck? Come on now. Give me a break. What the fuck? Anyway, I like the reboot. I think it's a fun one. Compared to Nightmare on Elm Street and some of the other remakes, I think it's one of the better ones. Saw it in the theater, had a good time with it. It has its flaws, don't get me wrong. The first minute or two where they try to replicate the ending of Friday the 13th, the first, is really bad. Like the first couple minutes. Like the acting's really bad in that. But I did think it got better. Number 3, I put Harold and Kumar, because I like all 3 films. The first film is in my top 10 favorite comedies. I love Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. I think John Cho and Cal Penn work so well together. That's a way of doing social commentary, but doing it in a witty, funny way that feels more genuine and not so insulting or pretentious. And it's quirky enough, and it's weird enough, and it's silly enough to be a good time. I guess the second would be my least favorite, but I could still watch it and have fun with it. And the third one I thought was a step up, and I thought was a kind of a nice, sweet Christmas movie. I don't know if they'd ever make another one, especially with the way the world is today. So if it's not, then it ended on a good note. They both going to have they both have their families now. They share like one smoke outside. They're together. It's Christmas time. It's a nice, sweet ending for the characters. Neil Patrick Harris is fun in those movies. I did like the Waffle Bot. I thought that was really cool in the third one. So I liked all three of them. That's definitely up there. Number two, I put Nightmare on Elm Street. Gotta. It was it was the horror franchise I watched the most when I was a kid. People would ask me like my favorite horror franchise. I would go back and forth. Sometimes I would say Friday the 13th, but I would say honestly, if I have to give a sincere answer of my favorite horror franchise, it would be Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are the ones I watched the most when I was a kid. I love Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. He's my favorite slasher villain because of his personality, his wit, Robert's acting. I really enjoy the first four. I like Freddy's Dead for what it is. I like Wes Craven's New Nightmare quite a bit. Don't like Part 5. I hate the remake. But, Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, I absolutely adore. And it's one of those few examples that it breaks the rule that I usually hate in movies. In this case, where it kills all the Dream Warriors off. I'm like, oh, that's lame. But because I like the energy, because I like Lisa Wilcox as Alice, it's my favorite character in the franchise, and I like the creativity, the imagination. I think Robert's on his A game, entertainment-wise. I love the battle at the end. And I do like Dream Warriors, but because I just like, as a solo film, Dream Master more, I could forgive the shortcomings of the beginning and the Dream Warriors being killed so easily that usually I would get so pissed about. And so that says a lot about my feelings on Elm Street 4 that I could forgive that, if that made sense. But it'd be like Dream Warriors I mean, granted, she doesn't die as easily, to be fair, but John Saxon does. He dies pretty easily. Heather Langenkamp dies. Granted, not easily, but, she does get tricked. Granted, she does help kill Freddy, to be fair. But it's like, oh, I didn't want to see Nancy and her dad die because I liked them in the first movie, but they die here. Just like, oh, I don't want to see Dream Warriors die. But I think it's because then they died too easily. I did it, but there's only so, I do get it. Maybe have one of the Dream Warriors survive. I actually think it would have been nice if Kincaid survived. Because he'd be the one you would think least likely to survive. Because he's black. But, yeah, and have like the two, him and Alice work together at the end. One of the old, one of the new regime. Kincaid's doing his thing. Then Alice comes in and kicks ass and does her thing. They both walk off. Kincaid's going to move away. He shakes her hand and Danny's hand, and they separate and the movie's over. But, yeah, I like the Elm Street films. I grew up with them. They're definitely nostalgic pieces of my childhood. And number one, of course, I put Ninja Turtles because I'm a Ninja Turtle guy. It's part of my damn username. And while I don't like the third one, the first two, speaking of childhood, they're so ingrained in my childhood because I watched those two films over and over and over again. The first and the second. The first one it's a kid's film, but it has its darker sensibilities and the look of the film and its serious moments, like one of them getting into a damn coma, and the way Splinter just looks completely wrecked and chained up. The second one, yes, it's goofy, but to me, it was a fun interpretation of the cartoon. I like Tokar and Razor. I like the practical effects. The second film, what I liked is I like the way the family is a family. I really feel like they're brothers. The way they goof on each other, the way they kid with each other, all the little moments they add in. I think they have a fun rapport in the second film. Even something as little as when Ernie Reyes Jr. stomps on Raphael's foot and you see Mikey doing this thing to calm his brother down, like petting his head. Like all those little moments put throughout the film with the way they work together was nice to see. Because they didn't have a whole lot of time to do that in the first one because they're introduced and then like Raphael's separated from the group and like Donnie and Mighty share some moments. Raph and Leo have an argument, that type of thing. Then they have that hug in the farmhouse. Maybe a little bit when they're having dinner at April's place. But I felt like there's a bit more of that family bit in the second film. Again, this is me talking all nerdy as fans of these characters. Do they have their flaws? Yes, like most movies. But yeah, the part one and part two, I watched those so many times. I love those movies. I could talk for 30 minutes on why I love both of those films. But we're already like 36 minutes in. Team and T I gotta put on there. So that's 1, Elm Street 2, Harold and Kumar 3, The Jason Films 4, Blade 5, Rush Hour 6, Critters 7, Friday 8, House Party 9, Final Destination 10. I was thinking of putting Mortal Kombat on there, but I love the first one, but I hate the second film. And if you count the new one, I hate that movie too. More so. I'd rather watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation than the new one. Dumb and Dumber, I like the first one. I don't mind the prequel, but I hate the sequel. So, there's one I like, one I don't mind, one I hate. Austin Powers, I like the first one. The sequels, take it or leave it. Lord of the Rings, never gave a shit about Lord of the Rings. Never did. Don't care about the movies. Don't care. I'm not even a big fantasy guy. There are some fantasy films I don't mind. Willow being one of them. There's a few others. Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Destroyer. But I'm not a big fantasy guy. Unless you got a sword, killing a lot of people, and titties, Conan. But there may be other ones I can't remember, but those are ones I could think of. So there you go. Thanks once again, BT. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.